And all I could think about for 10 days, is where's my little boy? This was the first time we had been separated. And I don't know if you've ever been forcefully separated from your child. If you've never had the experience, I'll pray that you never do. All I could think about for 10 days is, does my little boy know I didn't leave him like my father left me? Does my little boy know I can't be there because of these circumstances and conditions? What's my ex say where my little boy looks at her and says, where's Papa? That's all I could think about for 10 days. And I had to put that out of my mind because I had a more immediate problem. My last interview on Wall Street, my last shot, turns out was set up a day before I was to be released from prison. And to show you how the hand of God has worked in my life, there was a telephone and there was a guard. And I said to the guard, you know what? I've got one opportunity left to work on Wall Street, but I got to reschedule this one appointment. Will you please dial this number for me? Nothing less than the hand of God would have made a prison guard go over, dial the number I asked him to dial, and hand me the handset and the cord behind the bars. And the conversation is brief and to the point. Mr. Costello, hey, look, it's Chris Gardner, and something has come up. I wasn't going to say I'm in jail. Something's come up. I need to reschedule the appointment. Can I see you the day after tomorrow? Fine, done. Set it up 6:30 in the morning. Set it up at 6:30 in the morning for one reason. I knew something. You ever know something in your gut? Nobody's got to tell you. You just know it. I fulfilled my obligation to the state, my 10 days. They got their $1,200 worth of my time, and they figure we're even. I went to the place we used to call home in Berkeley, California. I looked through the window, and I knew they were gone. This chick took everything but the dust. And unfortunately, most importantly, she took my little boy. We had entered that unfortunate space where sometimes adults start acting like children. And one parent feels like if the only way I can hurt you is to hit you over the head with the baby, I'm going to do it. I put it out of my mind, and I went on this job interview wearing clothes I had worn in prison for the previous 10 days. Now, in the film, when you saw it or when you do see it, you'll see, remember Will Smith showed up with the blue jeans and the paint all over them? I wasn't just wearing blue jeans, I was wearing bell-bottom blue jeans. Hey, it was the 80s, we all had them. I was wearing bell-bottom blue jeans, Adidas sneakers, my work shoes with paint sprinkles all over them, and a members-only jacket. I had a red one. I was the last member. I had a big... I showed up at Mr. Costello's front door, and he said exactly what I would have said to anyone who showed up at my front door at 6:30 in the morning dressed like that. Deliveries in the rear. I would have said the same thing. But I come right back at him. I explained, Mr. Costello, I'm Chris Gardner. Today's the biggest day of my business career. I must admit, I'm underdressed for the occasion. Yeah, you got that right. What happened? I could not think of a lie bizarre enough. I told the truth. It was the best thing in the world I could have done. Unfortunately, Mr. Costello had been married and divorced 3 times. He started telling me stories about his ex-wives. That second one, I don't know why he ever got married again. He told me some stuff about her, man. He went on like that for 20 minutes, and out of nowhere he says, you'll be here tomorrow, I'll walk you in the training room. Boom, getting my shot. That's all I wanted. I'm hired. $1,000 a month gross. I moved into a boarding house, 3 meals a day and a room. That's all I could afford. I show up on Wall Street my first day, I had to borrow clothes. I show up in a suit, 2 sizes too big, shoes, 1 size too small. That's called a long day. Did not matter. I'm getting my shot. As a trainee in this business, you start at the bottom. You do what the brokers do not want to do or feel is beneath them, which is cold call. 200 phone calls a day. I turn myself into a calling machine. I don't know if you guys in the back can see, but in the front, you see how this one finger is cockeyed? That's my calling finger. Ken, I still use it today. Is that right? 200 times a day. And at night, study, study, study. No one had to tell me I'm only going to get one shot at this test. That's all I wanted. This goes on for months. I passed my exam, highest score in the class, big deal, my reward. I get to come back the next day and make 200 phone calls. A few months later, 1 a.m, there's a knock on the door, and it's my ex. And she doesn't want the baby anymore. The exact words were, "It's your turn." And just like that, that's how we became homeless. That's what I meant when I said life happens. The boarding house did not allow children. My son and I were instantly evicted. We joined a class of people invisible even among homeless people, working homeless people. It is estimated that 12% of all the homeless people in this country have jobs and go to work every day. In some communities, that number is as high as 30%. And I'm not talking about the guys outside with the cups. Working families, homeless. My son and I did the only thing we could do. We moved into a series of hotels. And I did put a special emphasis on that first syllable for a reason. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Hey, it is what it is. $25 a day in a color TV. Do the math. You're making $1,000 a month gross. And that man wants his $25 a day cash every day, Saturday and Sunday. It would not work. We moved downstream. $10 a day in a black and white TV. Imagine who's living next door to you and your baby at $10 a day. It won't work. Thank God there's a place called Glide Memorial Church and a man named Reverend Cecil Williams in San Francisco, California. My son and I began to go to church numerous times through the week, food for the soul. And just as importantly, food. In the basement of this church is something called Moe's Kitchen, where they serve 1 million meals a year to people who are in need. My son and I were in need. We ate more than our share, especially my son. Some of y'all know my son. Christopher today is 6 feet 9 inches tall, weighs 285 pounds. That all started in the basement of that church. I tell the Reverend every time I see him, you need to let folk know what could happen to their kids. He would see me and this baby standing in the food line. He let me know later. He served that community now for 42 years. He had never seen a man and a baby standing in the food line. And he'd always come over to me and say the same thing. What you doing with that baby? It's my baby. Well, what you gonna do with it? I'm gonna keep him. I have been asked many, many times, why didn't you give the baby to your mother? Well, you know what? That was not my mother's baby. That was my baby. And I had promised myself at 5 years old, when I grow up, become a man, have children, my children are going to know who their father is. Again, it was time to walk the walk.